So let's talk about how you can study once and remember for exams. Have you ever found yourself in the exam hall where you seem not to remember a term, but you studied for the exam? In fact, the night before the exam day, you studied deep into the night, yet at that instance, you can't seem to remember a term. Your brain is empty and blank. This is a very common thing that happens to students who still don't understand how they can actually study and remember for exams using the right strategies. I was once a victim for a very long time until I ran into one professor who would change how I approach my studies. From there, I was motivated to dig deeper, and today I'm going to share everything that I researched and found with you for free. The techniques that helped me go from being a struggling student to actually becoming someone who could study a material once and remember it not just for exams but for a long term. In exchange, I just need you to subscribe to the channel to support what I do. Let's dive right into the matter. Before we get into the solutions, let's talk about why most study methods fail. The biggest problem is passive review. Rereading your notes over and over, highlighting text, or just staring at flashcards. Man, you gotta stop doing that. You're wasting your precious time just to forget everything in the end. The problem with those methods is that your brain is not fully engaged in the learning process. So the information you learn doesn't stick. Another issue is cramming. Cramming is when you try to force tons and tons of information into your brain all at once. It is like trying to fill a cup with a fire hose. Most of it is going to spill and run over. Think about something that you are truly skilled at. Maybe playing an instrument, a sport, or even a video game. Did you become good at it just by reading about it once? Of course not. You practiced actively. You made mistakes and corrected them, and gradually you improved. The same principle applies to learn your academic material. Your brain needs to work with information in order to remember it. Cramming has several severe limitations, some of which include information overload. Your brain working memory can only hold 4 to 7 chunks of information at once. This makes cramming of loads and loads of information not a good thing to do. Sometimes it will be an exam o'clock and there will still be a lot for you to cover. Instances like that will force you to cram the information without actually understanding whatever thing that you are learning. So you cram very well throughout the night before the exam. Then the next day you will find yourself having trouble concentrating during the exam because your mind is fatigued. The worst part is that you don't remember most of the things you learned, and consequently you end up failing your exam. Cramming can be helpful, but for the most part, it is a terrible exam preparation attitude. In one of my previous videos, I explained the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, which basically explains how a learned information is forgotten over time if no effort is made to recall it. It shows that 70% of what we learn is usually lost just within the first 24 hours. And it gets worse if you cram the information or have had less enough sleep, which is so critical for memory consolidation. In other words, when you cram, the information gets stored on your short-term memory and most of it is forgotten within a day if you don't go back to it. So, you've put in the work, but there's nothing to show for it, just an illusion. Because you can't remember a single thing if you try to, and this defeats the whole purpose of learning. That's sad. Sometimes I get it, just like I rightly stated. Sometimes the all-nighters the cramming is necessary, but these practices impact your stress level. They can disrupt your sleep pattern, making it difficult for you to focus and to recall information from memory during the exam. If you focus on understanding the thing, it enables you to connect between ideas to build a schema or framework that integrate new and existing information. On the other hand, rote memorization makes you regurgitate facts that you really don't know on a deeper level, and neither can you apply them. And what you've learned, it fades quickly and offers no foundation for future learning. Your brain forms memories in 3 stages. The first is encoding. When you first encounter the information, the second stage is storage, and here your brain works to retain the information. And the third stage is retrieval, when you need to access that information later. Traditional studying focuses almost entirely on encoding, the first stage, with little attention to storage or the retrieval stage. But here's the secret. Strengthening all 3 phases is the key to remembering what you study. The techniques I'm about to share work because they align with how your brain naturally learns. They transform studying from a passive activity into an active process that engages multiple parts of your brain. Something you can do to better understand concepts to a deeper level involves making use of efficient strategies like active recall and spaced repetition, interleaving, and elaboration. To me, the best tip for long-term retention is spaced repetition using active recall methods. So, the first and most powerful steady technique is active recall. Instead of reading your notes, try to close your book and read out the concept out loud, and pretend as if you are teaching it to someone else. This will force your brain to retrieve the information, which strengthens your neural pathways. Here's how to implement this. After reading a section of your textbook, close it and write down everything you remember. Create practice questions for yourself based on your notes, and also you can use flashcards, but don't just read them. Try to recall the answer before flipping. I remember back when I was studying biochemistry, I would read a chapter once, then immediately close the book and try to sketch out the metabolic pathways from memory. At first, I could barely remember half the steps, but this immediate testing showed me exactly what I needed to review again. Our second technique is spaced repetition. Instead of studying something once for 5 hours, study it for 1 hour on 5 different days. Space out over time. Research shows that spacing out your study sessions leads to better long-term retention than cramming. Your brain needs time to consolidate memories. How about you try this schedule for a concept? First, you initially learn the material and then review 1 day later, and then 3 days later, and have another revision in 1 week later, and then finally review the material 2 weeks later. Digital tools like Anki, Gizmo, or Remnote can automate this process for you, showing you flashcards right when you are about to forget them. But even a simple calendar with a scheduled review sessions work great. The third technique is chunking and connections. Our brains remember information better when it is organized and connected to things we already know. Chunking means grouping information into meaningful units. For example, instead of memorizing historical dates, group events by themes or periods. Making connections is about linking new information to existing knowledge. Ask yourself, how does this relate to something I already know? Can I create a metaphor or analogy for this concept? And how does this fit into the bigger picture? Next, one of the most powerful ways to cement your understanding is to teach the material to someone else. This is called the Feynman technique. Here is how it works. Choose a concept and explain it in simple terms as if you are teaching a child. Then identify gaps in your explanation. Go back and review and simplify further. If you can't find someone willing to listen, explain it to an empty chair or record yourself or write an explanation of it in a notebook. The night before my organic chemistry final, I spent an hour explaining reaction mechanisms to my roommate who had never taken chemistry. Having to simplify complex concepts and answer her questions revealed exactly which areas I needed to review more. The fifth technique I want to share with you is multisensory learning. Your brain forms stronger memories when multiple senses are involved. Don't just read your notes. Find ways to engage your different senses. Engage your visual sense by creating diagrams, mind maps, or color code your notes. Engage your auditory sense by recording yourself explaining concepts and listen while walking. And kinesthetically, act out processes. Use hand gestures or walk around while reciting information. I used to struggle with memorizing anatomy terms until I started drawing the structures while saying the names out loud and tracing the pathways with my finger. Engaging multiple senses helped me remember complex systems much more effectively. One of the important things about exam that is less talked about is how to manage exam stress. Even the best memory technique can be undermined by stress. When you are anxious, the area of your brain we call the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for recall and critical thinking, doesn't function optimally. Here are some evidence-based strategies. Practice retrieval under exam-like conditions to build your confidence. Use box breathing. That is, you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4 counts again. Next strategy is preparing your body. Prioritize sleep. Eat brain-boosting foods and exercise regularly. Also try to experiment through various activities and develop what I call pre-exam rituals that calm your mind. Writing my final exam in high school, I was so nervous I could barely think straight. One of my teachers then suggested I try power posing. Thus, standing in a confident stance for 2 minutes before the exam. It sounds silly, but research shows it can actually reduce stress hormones. I tried it, and while I can't say it was magic, it did help me feel more in control and focused. Now let's put these techniques together into an actionable study plan. What you have to do is that on your first exposure, actively engage with the material by taking notes and asking questions. In your first review on the same day, test yourself using active recall. In the second review, day 1 to 2 days later, take the concept to someone else. In your third review, create connections with other topics, and in the final review in about 2 weeks later, practice under exam-like conditions. Remember, the goal isn't just to pass the exam. It is to truly understand and remember the information long term. On your first exposure, actively engage with the material by taking notes and asking questions. In your first review on the same day, test yourself using active recall. In the second review, day 1 to day 2 later, teach the concept to someone else. In your third review, create connections with other topics, and in the final review in about 2 weeks later, practice under exam conditions. Remember, the goal isn't just to pass the exam, it is to truly understand and remember the material long term. And the beauty of this system is that it actually saves you time in the long run. You might spend a bit more time up front, but you will avoid the hours of desperate rereading the night before the exams. We have covered a lot today, but remember that improving your study habits is a process. You don't need to implement everything at once. Start with one technique, maybe active recall. The techniques we discuss are not just about acing the exams. They are about becoming a more effective learner for life. Whether you are studying for finals, learning a new language, or mastering a professional skill, these principles will serve you well. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more study tips and productivity hacks. Drop a comment, let me know which technique you are going to try first. Until next time, happy studying. My name is Javo and I am that guy.